Will be an informal recess to allow the defense to take care of that issue. Please be seated. Please be seated. I'll ask our jurors again, have you followed my instructions, not talked about the case among yourselves, looked up any of the people or places involved? Even if you did so inadvertently, now would be the time to raise your hand and let me know. For the record, no jurors lifted their hand. Defense, first witness.
Connie Sievers.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
This is the mic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Bonnie Sievers.
How do you spell your first name, ma'am?
B-O-N-N-I-E.
Okay. Do you know Marc Sievers?
Yes,
How do you know him?
it's my son.
When was your son born?
March 19, 1968.
Okay, so you're
19,
51 years old? Now, did Marc have any siblings, brothers or sisters?
yes,
Who did he have?
Stacy, Julie, and Scott.
2 sisters and a brother?
Yes,
And were you married when Marc was a child?
yes,
Okay. And did all of you live together?
yes.
And what did you do at that time, ma'am?
The homemaker,
Okay. And who were you married to?
Mike Sievers.
Okay. And what did he do for a living?
He was a pharmacist, and then he went to school to be a veterinarian. When I was with him,
Sorry?
when we were together,
Okay. At some point, you were no longer together?
correct.
And what happened, ma'am?
Divorced,
And do you recall when that was?
1978,
Okay, so how old would Marc have been then?
10.
10 years old? Okay. And by the way, with the 2 daughters and Marc and his brother, who's the oldest and so on to the youngest?
Stacy, Julie, Marc, Scott's the youngest.
Okay. Can you, for the jury, describe your son Marc, what he was like as a child?
Marc was fun to be with. He was curious. He was loving. He was kind. As a child, he still is. As he grew older, he kind of developed a way of wanting to take care of people, and he was very sensitive and wrote a journal. He, when my daughter, Julie, was in high school, and she didn't have any diamond earrings, Marc wanted to give her her first set of diamond earrings so she would feel good. And he saved his allowance, and they weren't expensive, but he bought her a set of diamond earrings just so she would have her first set. He, as a teenager, worked at a homeless shelter because he always wanted to help people. When he was working at a restaurant as a waiter, and backs and all that at the restaurant, and someone would come in, one of the workers, and they were new, and the other workers were criticizing that person or talking behind his back or didn't like the way the person voice sounded. And Marc didn't know this person, but Marc would stand up for him and say, no, that's not right. He always liked to protect, he felt like he was the protector and always wanted to take care of the underdog. And to go on in his life more? Or?
Now, you mentioned that Marc had a job as a waiter and that he was volunteering at a homeless shelter. Do you know what other kind of jobs that he did?
He went to school and became an LPN, licensed practical nurse. And he worked at the casino. He eventually became a supervisor. Marc has a way, when he walks, he has a bounce in his step. He always has this. And he always had a smile on his face. He just had like a happy soul. And when he was at the casino, he had, they called him Smiley because of how he always was friendly to people and helping people and smiling.
Did Marc have any, Mr. Sievers, have any role as a caretaker to anyone in your family?
He was a caretaker for my father. My father lived to be 102 and a half. And he had type 1 diabetes. Marc would come every day and give him insulin shots. He could do that. I had a hard time giving shots. And he would come every day for that. And Daddy, and Marc called him Pawpaw, he had wanted to go on a cruise. He had always wanted to go on a cruise. And when Daddy was 93, I think, Marc surprised him, and he had saved money to take him on, I think it was a Caribbean cruise, and with Pawpaw. So the two of them went together, Marc and Pawpaw. They always hugged, they always kissed. And he took them on, hit them on the cruise. And then we had a party for him when they came back. Pawpaw loved it, being with Marc. When Marc shaved his head, and Pawpaw, my father, eventually lost his eyesight. So Marc would hold his head down so he could feel, yes, I don't have any hair, and he's bald. And he was a great caretaker, great mediator with everyone in the family. If there was, Daddy and I had a misunderstanding one time, but Marc wouldn't stand for that. He talked to Pawpaw and brought us all back together.
Now, were you present when Mr. Sievers and Dr. Teresa Sievers were married?
Yes.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
State's previously seen all of the exhibits that we intend to bring out through this witness.
And you have which exhibits with
This is 13, Defense Exhibit 13S. Ma'am, I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, and it's Marc, it's Teresa, and Marc with the yarmulke on his head, because we're also Jewish.
Is that their wedding?
Yes, beautiful wedding.
And that accurately depicts how they appeared that day?
Yes.
Judge, we move to admit that.
We'll show it admitted.
May I publish?
Yes, sir.
Now, ma'am, you said that Marc had something in his head?
A yarmulke,
Okay, and why is that?
because we're Jewish, Teresa's not, and Marc always wanted to. They just combined both.
And just, can you just talk a little bit more about that? What Marc's faith was?
Well, Marc is Jewish, but was Reform Jewish, so it's more easygoing. And he wore the yarmulke, and can I tell about how he would want to teach Judaism to the kids, or?
That's what I mean, when you talk about his faith, how did that also play into their marriage and into the relationship with the children?
Okay. When the girls were born and they got older, Marc and Teresa was always accepting of everything. Marc wanted to teach the girls more about Judaism also, and he would take them to temple and go on the holidays, and then he bought a book called Judaism for Dummies, and that was what he would work from, and he'd talk to them about the different holidays, and at Hanukkah, which is right around Christmas time, he would teach, and Josie wanted to light the candles. It's a menorah, it's a candlestick, and candles. And Josephine, the oldest grandchild, Marc's daughter. And Josie had a paper that would read the blessing over the menorah, over the Hanukkah candles. And Josie would light the candles and read the blessing. And when Josie was in second grade and I was volunteering at the school, and it happened to be around Hanukkah time also, I brought a menorah in and got permission that she could actually light a candle in school, because you're not allowed to light candles in school. And she lit the candles on the menorah and said the blessing in Hebrew. And I know she was really proud of that, and her classmates would hear her do that, and it was really a nice experience.
And faith-wise, did the family also celebrate Christmas?
Oh, definitely. Christmas, they had a beautiful tree. Josie and Carmi are very smart and very creative and very clever. And they were going to stay up and watch for Santa to come and bring them their presents. And they had cookies and milk out for Santa Claus. But they also wanted a camera video so they could see Santa coming in to put the presents under the tree. Although they had strong belief. And so when the girls went to sleep, and then the next morning when they get up, somehow the camera must have stopped working or whatever, but there were the gifts under the tree from Santa Claus. And that was they were wanting to they were smart, they were clever. We're gonna videotape him bringing the gifts, Santa bringing the gifts.
All right, ma'am, I'm gonna move you forward a little bit to around 2006. You know where Marc and Teresa lived at that time?
On Jarvis, is that the one in here?
And Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
This is Defense Exhibit 14S. Recognize that photo, ma'am?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a beautiful house on Jarvis from Marc and Teresa lived in.
Okay, that fairly depicts the home.
Yes, that was.
Move to admit that, Judge?
We'll show it admitted.
Publish?
Yes, sir.
Now, ma'am, you have already spoken a bit about their children. Who were the two children of the marriage?
Josie and Carmi. Well, she goes by Josephine as Josie, and Carmela is Carmi.
Okay.
And
That's all right, ma'am. Judge, I'm going to approach with Defense Exhibit 15S and 16S.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, do you recognize these photographs?
yeah.
What's 15?
Okay, this one is Josie
Okay. And anyone else?
and Marc.
Okay.
and the stork.
Okay, and how about 16S?
And this one is Mark with Carmi, with little hair sticking up.
Okay, did each of these accurately depict
Yes.
those folks?
Yes.
I move to admit, Judge.
We'll show them both admitted.
And this is 15, that's. And you talk about the stork in that photo, what is that?
That was just an, actually Stacy sent them that stork with Josie's name on it, Josephine Edie,
All right, and then this is 16S, that's the one with Carmela?
Carmela.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
This is Defense Exhibit 17S, 34S, and 35S. Ma'am, would you take a look at those three, please?
Josie, Carmi,
That's, which number?
17S.
Okay, next one.
34S is Josie hugging her little sister Carmi.
Okay,
And 35S, they're so happy. Carmi is smiling, and Josie on their bicycles.
and that accurately depicts
Yes.
the children in each of those?
Yes.
Judge, I move to admit Defense 17S, 34S, and 35S?
We'll show them admitted.
17S. 34S. And 35S. So, ma'am, tell us about Mark as a father. What was he like?
He was very hands-on. He was the stay-at-home dad. He also worked at the Teresa's office, managed that and so forth. But as the father, he would get involved in all the girls' activities. He taught them how to swim, and then got them swimming lessons. When the girls were older, and he encouraged them to be whatever they wanted to do, and they wanted to sing and dance and act, and they were in plays. And Mark volunteered to work behind the scenes where they had painting or help building the sets or whatever. He did that. He always taught them how, and so did Teresa, about virtues and what's right and what's wrong, and to talk about feelings. And he was really very good at that, and very loving. Always, what?
Did they love him back?
Yeah, they loved him. They snuggled up with him. He was daddy. They would go places together and swimming or go to the park, go to the water park. He'd take him to Disney World.
Well, I want to ask you a bit about that. We heard a little earlier in a video something about a place called, or I'm sorry, from Dr. Sievers-Mother about a place called Our Mother's Home.
Yes.
Did Mark, was he involved in any charity work?
Yes, he helped with that, Our Mother's Home.
What is that?
It is a place for unwed mothers and human trafficking. with these girls, and they all went to our mother's home. And Mark and Teresa helped out with that. Mark, he noticed at the grocery store when they had the fried chicken that he went and asked, what do you do with it when the store closes and that all hasn't been bought? And they throw it away. So Mark, I don't know what the arrangement was, but he would get the fried chicken that wasn't sold for that day, and he'd bring it to the mother's home, our mother's home. And eventually, when he kept doing it, he was called the Chicken Man, because he would be coming with the fried chicken. He worked with the girls, and the girls wanted to do something. They always wanted to teach the girls about giving to others and different charities. He helped them with creating a business of making these bracelets that are hooked colored little rubber bands all together, make a round little bracelet like that. And they would sell them and give the money and earn the money to bring to our mother's home to help them out. He also took them over to one of the parks they had, I think it was the Cafe for Life, where they would help serve food and different things to the people that were in need come. Because just to show the girls how important it is to help other people. When the girls were at one of the schools, they got involved in Odyssey of the Mind. And that's an after-school program for whoever wanted to join it. And it teaches kids to be creative and think out of the box. And Mark helped with that and teaching that for the...
Disneyland trip involved?
The who?
Disneyland trip involved?
No, that was, the Disneyland with our mother's home is that at one time Teresa and him took some of the women from our mother's home to Disney World. This was just after, it was at Secret School, they had the Odyssey of the Mind.
Now, ma'am, you said you became divorced from your first husband, correct?
Yes.
And what's your current domestic situation?
I mean, do I have a partner now?
Yes.
Yes,
And who is that?
Melanie.
And may I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
This is Defense Exhibit 18S. Take a look at this.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Who's that?
it's Melanie.
Just fairly depict her.
Yeah,
Judge,
Pretty
look
blue
at
eyes.
this, 18S.
what?
Showed admitted.
Published.
Yes, sir. You may publish.
And who again is this, ma'am?
That's Melanie.
Okay. Is that your domestic partner?
Yes,
Is she here with you today?
yes, she is. Very loving and caring, and
Does she know Mark?
yes.
What kind of relationship do they have?
Well, she thinks of him as her son, and the girls call her Grand DM for the grandma. And I'm Gammy. And the girls stayed with us on,
Yeah, well, let me ask you, after your son was arrested, and by the way, prior to his arrest on this case, are you aware of him ever having been arrested in his entire life for anything?
was not aware of him ever being arrested
No.
on anything.
Did the daughters stay with you for a period of time after your son was arrested?
We would have them on the weekends, every weekend. And Melanie and I would take them to a park to practice soccer, because Carmi wanted to be in the Y soccer. And we would just do activities with the girls.
While they were staying with you?
Yes.
Did they ever send anything to their father?
Well, yeah, they wanted to keep in touch, and so they would write postcards. And it was much easier. I would just write the address on the front of the postcard. And then you put your return address, but I left the part where you sign it by them. So they would each write their name on the top of the return address. And then they would write to their daddy, and then I would stamp it and mail it.
Okay. May I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Offense Exhibit 19SA. Let's take a look at those 2 pages, ma'am, and tell me if you know what they are.
This is the one where I addressed the postcard and with my return address, and then Josie wrote her name, Joe. And she wrote a little, which I didn't notice, a little ILY and a smiley face on the front for I love you.
Now, there's some writing on page 2. Do you recognize that handwriting?
Yes,
Who is that?
Josie.
So then after she would write in her own handwriting, give it back to you, and you would then mail it.
Yes, it was I love you with a heart and a smiley face.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, ma'am.
Josie and Carmi, Marc would send them,
First of all, hold on, ma'am. Judge, move to admit 19SA.
We'll show it admitted.
And that page 2 is a sample of one of the
Yes,
cards that they sent
yes.
to their father. Okay. You want to add something?
yeah, I wanted to say that it wasn't always one-sided. Marc wrote to the girls, and they would be with Mary Ann during the week, and we would get them on the weekend, and they just couldn't wait to get all the cards, all the letters that Marc had sent to them, that they were so excited, and they're reading them in the car, and they're opening up to hear from Daddy, and what did Daddy have to say? And then they would write Daddy again. But that was a big thing to look forward to hearing from their father.
And Judge, if I may approach,
Yes, sir.
this is Defense Exhibit 20S. You recognize this photograph, ma'am?
Yes, this is the one of Josie had a birthday party, and she was Wonder Woman, wanted to be Wonder Woman, and Carmi wanted to be like a ninja karate person, and she's on the floor hugging his leg, and Josie's up there, and we were at the party, and it was at some type of party place or whatever, and it was so much fun and
Okay, so you
so
were
much
there when that
laughter.
photo was taken?
Yes,
Okay, so it accurately depicts, was that taken by?
a
just-
professional photographer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Judge, I move to admit Defense 20S.
We'll show it admitted.
So who's that on top of Wonder Woman?
Josie is Wonder Woman. Carmi is the ninja karate person. She wanted that. Because they were taking karate or Brazilian karate or whatever, both of them, and Carmi really got into that.
Now, ma'am, Mr. Sievers was arrested February 26, 2016. Have you visited him since he's been incarcerated?
Every week, sometimes twice a week, and then, and with Melanie, and then every Monday. Unless we were sick, or if I was out of town one time, or for maybe 3 times or so, didn't, but mostly every Monday, and at the beginning it was twice a week. And then Jennie came, the other grandma, and so she took one of the dates and I took the other.
So you love your son?
very much. He's very caring, very kind, very thoughtful, always wanting to make sure you're okay. And
If your son was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, would you continue to support him?
of course, he's my baby. He's my son, and I would always be there for him. I mean,
Thank you, ma'am. That's all the questions I have.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next witness.
Would you like me to submit these to the clerk at this time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Scott Sievers?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record.
Scott Sievers.
And do you know Marc Sievers?
I do.
How?
He is my brother.
And is he your older brother or younger brother?
He is my older brother by 1 year, 1 month, and 1 week.
Okay. Where do you currently live, sir?
St. Peters, Missouri.
And how long you lived in Missouri?
My basically majority of my entire life.
All right. And what do you do there, sir?
I am a mortgage banker.
Okay. How long you done that?
18 plus years.
Okay. Married?
I am married.
And how long?
I've been married for 26 and a half years. That's my wife, Karen. We have 3 kids. A daughter who is 23 named Rachel, a son just turned 21 named Bradley, and a little one, 8, named Andrew.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
That's Defense Exhibit 12S. So take a look at that. Do you recognize it?
I sure do.
Who's that?
Me and my wife.
Okay. Accurately depict you and your wife?
Yes.
Judge, I move to admit 12S.
Okay. We'll show it admitted.
You're the bigger one, right?
Correct. One with less hair.
So during the course of your marriage and you and your wife having kids, do you ever have any interaction with your brother and his wife and their kids?
Yes, we have.
What kind of?
Well, before we got married, Marc was actually one of my groomsmen at my wedding. And he lived in St. Louis at the time. This was 26 and a half years ago. He was part of, being in St. Louis. When I'm in St. Louis, it's a lot easier for us to be together, to see each other. He was always, and we had kids. He was always the kind of guy who would want to spoil his niece and nephew, to the point that we were aggravated with it, because every present he gave them came with a set of little rubber balls, which would end up being all over the house or all over the car or all over everywhere. But that was typical of Marc, giving those toys to the kids just because he wanted to, the kids loved it and aggravated us, so it was a win-win for him. So he did that, but he always was there with our family when he was in St. Louis with the holidays. And then once he moved to Florida, it was a little more difficult to maintain that personal contact, but everything was either on holidays, we came to St. Louis, or we would go down to Florida. We would see each other and the families and the girls, his kids, my kids. But other than that, once he was here and I'm there, majority of our conversations were telephone.
Okay. So although there was a gap in distance between you, you've remained close as brothers.
Certainly. He would call me from the car on speakerphone with the girls in the back seat talking to me as well. But yeah, we would talk all the time. Yeah, it was hard to get together when we're 1,200 miles away, but yeah.
Let's go back in time and talk about you guys growing up. Where did you And Mark and your other, and you have other siblings?
Correct. I have two other, I had two other siblings, my two sisters,
And who were they?
Stacy and Julie.
And what ages were they in relation to you two?
I'm the baby. Mark's a year older than me. Julie will be 4 years older than Mark, and Stacy was a year older than Julie.
Okay, and where is Julie now?
Lives in St. Louis, a suburb of St. Louis.
And where is your other sister?
Stacy passed away.
When did she pass away?
I'm not sure of the year, but she passed away of Graves' disease.
Okay, Graves' disease? You know what that is?
It's a thyroid issue, disease
Okay.
that affects her thyroid.
Was that difficult for you and Mark and the family?
Yes. Definitely.
So where'd you live growing up?
First house we lived in was in Winchester on 62 Hillcrest. We lived there for approximately 8 years, I'd say.
And judgment approach?
Yes, sir.
This is Defense Exhibit 1S. You know what this is, sir?
Yes, that's 62 Hillcrest, the house we lived in from the time I was 1 to the time I was 9.
Now, is that photo from the olden days, or has that been taken recently?
Recently, I took this picture on Sunday.
Okay, but does it still fairly and accurately depict the home that you grew up in?
Definitely, yes.
Defense 1S?
Objection. Showed admitted.
Where'd you say this was, sir?
62 Hillcrest in Winchester, Missouri. It's a suburb out of St. Louis.
So who lived in this home?
All of us, my mother, my father, and my 3 siblings and myself.
I'm going to show you now, sir. It's been marked as Defense Exhibit 2S, and 4S, and 5S, and 3S, and 8S. Take a look at the stack and tell me if you recognize those.
Yes, I do.
Good. Can you name off the exhibit number and tell me what?
2S is my mother, Bonnie, sitting out here. 4S is my oldest sister, Stacy. 5S is Jamie, Julie Sievers, goes by Jamie. 3S is the picture of all 4 siblings and my father. And 8S is a picture of all 4 siblings at my sister Julie's wedding.
They all fairly and accurately depict the people who are depicted in there?
Yes, they do.
Had to move to admit those exhibits? Like to read it.
We'll show them admitted.
All right, 2S you said was,
My mother,
she's here today.
correct.
Four S you said was,
My oldest sister, Stacy,
and she is,
passed away.
and 5S,
My other sister, Julie,
and she is where?
in St. Louis.
Did she have some difficulties in trying to come down this week?
I believe that she had problems with the airline and being able to get to the airport to get the flight, yes.
She can't be with us today.
Correct.
3S was,
A picture of the 4 siblings, me and my 3 siblings, and my father.
recall about when that would have been taken?
That might have been at his wedding, I'm not sure.
Okay. Is that Marc in the blue shirt
Correct,
with full head of hair?
yes.
Okay. And then you said 8S was?
The 4 of us at my sister Julie's wedding.
Brothers and sisters close?
Yes. We talk all the time, except for obviously my deceased sister, but my other sister, she calls me pretty much daily or every other day,
Did y'all love your brother Marc?
most definitely.
some point during your childhood, your parents were divorced,
That is correct.
and you recall about what ages?
I was 9 when that happened.
Mark would have been
10, a year older than me.
tough on the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
So what happened after that divorce? Did you move somewhere else?
Well, we moved houses at that point. Maybe it's about a mile away from where we were living to a street on Genoa. So my mom and us lived there. My dad had an apartment about 15 minutes away.
And you recall where you moved to?
Yes, 384 Genoa
And that would be where?
in Manchester, Missouri.
And who lived in this home?
The 4 children and my mother.
Judge, approach with Defense Exhibit 9S. What's that look like to you, sir?
That looks like the house we lived in.
Once again, recent photo or old?
Taken on Sunday. I'm sorry, Saturday.
Still fairly and accurately depict the home?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, move to admit Defense 9S.
Showed admitted.
Publish.
You may publish.
So did you always live with your mother after the divorce, or did you live
No,
elsewhere?
we didn't. I did not. I lived with her until my freshman year of high school. At that point, I lived with my father and stepmom in Fenton, Missouri, which was about 15 minutes away from where we were living currently.
How about Mark?
He moved there a year before I did with my dad and stepmom. He went his freshman year. I went my freshman year, a year behind him.
So due to the divorce and the separation of the family unit, there was people moving around different places?
Yes.
And you recall where that address was?
843 Lakeview Ridge,
In?
Fenton, Missouri.
Judge, if I may approach with Defense Exhibit 10S,
Yes, sir.
you recognize that?
That is the house.
Once again,
That's an old picture.
it's an old one?
Yep.
Okay. So that does or does not fairly and accurately represent?
It definitely does.
Okay, thank you. Move to admit Defense 10S.
Showed admitted.
So who lived in this home again, sir?
That was Jennie's home, my stepmom's home, and then my brother and I both lived there with her and my father.
Okay. Your stepmom here today also?
Yes, she is.
Do you remember ever going on any trips with your dad and Mark?
Yes, we did. Time was precious, basically, with my father. He was always busy. Being a veterinarian, running his own practice, out in somewhat half rural, half urban area, he was always busy. So it was, when we got a chance to get away, it was well appreciative. And one of the times we did a father-son trip up to Canada for a fishing trip. It was 7 of us that went up there. It was a lot of fun. My dad had me and my brother. Another guy had his son. Another guy brought his father. So it was, a different dynamic there. But it was 7 of us went there for a fishing trip, and we caught a bunch of fish.
All right. Let me approach with Defense Exhibit 11S.
Yes, sir.
You recognize this photograph, sir?
Yeah, yes, I do.
And who is that?
That is my father and my brother in a boat on a lake in Canada.
All right. So does that fairly and accurately depict them as they were then?
Correct, but there should have been fish in the boat with them.
Huh.
We caught a lot of fish.
Judge, move to introduce 11S.
Objection.
Showed admitted.
Publish.
You may publish.
Thank you. And your dad have any other, did he own a boat himself?
Yes, in Fenton area, there was a place called the Merrimack Marina, and he had a pontoon boat that we used to go out on weekends and such like that.
So for at that Lakeview Ridge in Fenton, Missouri, did you move somewhere else after that?
Yes, after that, my father decided that he was going to sell his veterinary practice and go to medical school. So we moved down to the Caribbean, a little island called Montserrat, where he went to medical school.
Who lived there? Who moved there?
My dad, Jennie, my stepmom, my brother, and me.
Not the sisters.
No.
No. So you and your brother had been in school system in Missouri
Correct.
and were taken out of that and taken down to this Caribbean island?
Correct. At that point, we did correspondence school, homeschooling, basically.
Okay. At some point, did you move from there?
Correct. I moved back to St. Louis with my mom while my dad was still down in the Caribbean with Jennie and Marc. So I was back in St. Louis at that point. Eventually, he came back for a short period of time before he went to England where he did his clinicals. At that point, I moved to England over there with him.
You did.
I did.
Did Mark go over there too?
No, he did not.
All right, so it was just you and your father over there,
And my stepmom.
and Mark stayed?
Correct. He was still in school here. I left school to go over there.
Okay. So once again, there was some disruption in the family unit?
Yes.
Can you describe your brother as a father? You have a little bit. Can have anything else you'd like to add or elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, definitely. Since most of our contact was done via telephone, him living down in Florida, me living in Missouri, it's almost every conversation he was bragging about something the girls had done or one did or the other did. It might have been a soccer game, someone scoring a goal. It might have been a violin recital. It might have been a play they were working on or were in. But almost every conversation was something, either something one of the girls did that was funny, but it was always bragging on the girls. I mean, it's every conversation. So I could hardly get into any words on my kids and what they were doing. It was, it was all, almost like a competition at sometimes because we both were very proud of our kids. But yeah, it was a proud father, very loving father.
And since your brother has been arrested, have you supported him during this time?
Yes, I have.
Would you continue to support your brother if he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole?
Yes, I would. I love my brother.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sievers, you've lived in Missouri all of your life.
Majority of it, except for the times I was in the Caribbean or in England, yes.
You consider Missouri to be home.
Yes, I would do.
You were living in Missouri in April of 2015,
Yes.
and between April 29th and May 3rd of 2015, you were living in Missouri,
Yes.
along with your wife and children.
Yes.
Been married 26 years.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a long time. And in that time period between April 29th of 2015 and May 3rd, 2015, Mr. Marc Sievers didn't visit you, did he?
I don't recall.
He did not come to visit you, did he?
I don't believe so, no.
Were you even aware he was in Missouri, in Fenton, Missouri, during that time period?
If I'm saying the time he was in for a wedding,
Yeah.
yeah, I was aware he was in town, yes.
And Fenton is less than an hour drive from where you live?
Currently, it's about 45 minutes to an hour away, yes.
An easy distance to traverse with a rental-car, right?
Sure.
And I'm sorry about the divorce of your parents. Let me just ask, when your parents divorced, you still were able to maintain a relationship with both of your parents, right?
That is correct.
As were your sisters and your brother, right?
Yes.
Mr. Sievers, Mr. Marc Sievers, bragged on his daughters.
Correct.
He loved his daughters.
Yes.
They were the most important thing to him.
They were highly important to my brother, yes.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Connie Reiss. Connie Reiss. We'll spell it in a moment.
Thank you.
Judge, may I approach the clerk?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
No exhibits for this. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for the record and spell it, please?
Connie Reiss, Connie Reiss.
And where do you live, ma'am?
I live in Norwalk, Connecticut.
How long you been there?
13 years.
What do you do?
I am a brand director for a company that makes eyewear. We license and manufacture sunglasses and ophthalmic frames.
Do you know Marc Sievers?
I do.
How?
He is my stepbrother.
And can you explain how you two became stepbrother, stepsister?
Yeah, stepbrother. He's also one of my oldest friends. My stepfather and my mother were married when I was 12 years old. I think Marc was 11 or maybe 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around that time frame. So we were both of, we were very close. It was a natural, fast bond because we were of the same age, having gone through the same kind of experience very recently. So it was a fast friendship. And
So what I'm going to ask you to do is just describe to the jury your relationship with Mr. Sievers.
Marc is my brother. Marc has always been a constant source of support in my life and in the lives of all of his siblings. He is the glue, oftentimes, that keeps our family together. Marc, it's a very unique situation because you don't get to choose who your siblings are oftentimes. And Marc is, without a doubt, my sibling, but I've also chosen, and he has chosen to maintain a relationship with me, even though life has taken us in very separate directions. Marc's support has meant everything. He's been my keeper in a lot of ways, vetting every single boyfriend or date that I ever had, to playing a major role in my battle with cancer. I'm indebted, and he is my brother.
Are you able to talk at all about what you know about your brother as a father to his children? Absolutely.
Marc is a superhero father. Marc is he's a homemaker, but he's a provider in that he managed a business. He cared for his girls, and he was a loving husband. There is not, his family was his universe, and he was loving, affectionate, kind in so many different ways. I could say as a father, he was also very unconventional in that his approach with his daughters was to instill a sense of worth. He was about empowerment and teaching the girls how to make decisions and think critically and also think creatively outside of the box, about making the right decisions in life and how to take care of themselves, whether it would be through nutrition, activity, spirituality, and exploring Judaism and Christianity. And he teaches them how to do good. And that's already been explained in more ways than that. But that's the kind of father Marc is. The girls are his universe. And they loved him with equal intensity.
Yeah, you said you live up in Connecticut. Have you been able to maintain contact with Mr. Sievers since he's been incarcerated?
I have.
And to what extent?
Well, it's been challenging with postcards being returned. Mail. When I'm with my mother, Marc knows when I will be here and traveling with her, so he's able to call. Mm-hmm. And we can maintain communication through my mom for 4 years.
Did you get to talk to him yesterday?
I did.
You love your stepbrother?
I love my stepbrother. I love my brother with all my heart.
If you were sentenced to life in the Florida State Prison without the possibility of ever being released, no parole, would you continue to support it?
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Sievers is a superhero dad, right?
Yes, sir.
His daughters are his universe.
Yes, sir.
So much so that he would do anything to protect his daughters, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything further from the defense?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Next witness.
Jennie Weckelman? Spell it. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Would you please state your name and then spell it for the purposes of the record, please?
certainly. Jennie, Jennie, Weckelman, Weckelman.
Where do you live, ma'am?
In Naples, Florida.
How long you live there?
About 20 years now.
All right. Do you work?
No, I'm retired.
Okay. Thank you. Approach, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Defense Exhibit 28S. You know what that is?
I think that's me. Yes, it is me.
Good.
Defense
You know
exhibit.
about how old that picture is?
Oh, it's probably 3 or 4 years old.
Okay, hair's a little shorter.
Yes, a little shorter.
Move to admit defense 28S.
Showed admitted.
You know where that was taken?
I don't really remember. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you know Marc Sievers?
I do.
How?
I married his father back in 1980,
And who is his father?
Michael Sievers.
And how did you meet Michael Sievers?
We lived in the same small town. Mike had a vet practice, and I had a pet store, and it was right next door to his practice.
Your pet store was next to his vet practice?
Correct.
And at some point, how did you meet?
Well, I think one day I went over and had to ask a veterinary type question. We did have pets in the store, and the boys were in there, Marc and Scott. Mike's sons. They were helping their father clean up after the day, mopping the floors and things like that.
So at some point, a relationship developed between you and Mr. Sievers?
Yes, he gave me advice on pets.
All right. But at some point, you two got married, correct?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall when that was?
That was 1980.
And Judge, if I may approach?
You may.
Defense Exhibit 21S and 23S. Would you take a look at those two, ma'am? Just let me know if you know what they depict.
Yes, 21S is when Mike and I were married, the day we were married.
Hold it down for now.
Oh, okay. And 23S is Marc and myself at the wedding.
Okay. Those fairly depict the individuals that you mentioned?
Yes, they do.
And do you know who all the folks are in 21S?
Yes. Scott's in the front on the right, Marc on the left, Julie's behind Marc, Stacy's right next to her father. I'm on the other side of Mike, and then my daughter Connie is on the right side of me.
Judge, move to admit defense 21S and 23S.
We'll show them admitted.
May I publish?
You may publish.
21S, this is the wedding photo?
Yes, it is.
And 23S is
That's Marc and myself.
slightly younger, you and...
Slightly, just slightly.
So where did you folks live when you first got married?
843 Lakeview Ridge in Fenton, Missouri.
Okay.
Same place we had our pet store, or I had the pet store, and Mike had his vet practice.
And who lived there?
Myself and my daughter Connie for a time, and Scott and Marc and Mike.
At some point, did you move to another location?
Yes,
Where'd you move to?
we moved to the Caribbean, to an island called Montserrat. Mike wanted to go to medical school, and they had a nice school there that he'd heard a lot of good things about. So we took the boys and took the boys with us.
So were the kids taken out of school?
They were taken out of school. We planned,
From their friends and activities and all that?
yes, I'm afraid so.
And Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
This is Defense Exhibit 24S, 25S, 31S. Ma'am, do you recognize those photographs?
So my husband Mike,
What number
and
is that, ma'am?
that's 24S. He's on the right, a friend of ours from Kenya, and myself on the left.
Okay.
Yeah. And 25S is the rental house we had on the island of Montserrat. And 31S is a newspaper article when we returned from the Caribbean.
Do all of these fairly inaccurately depict what you described?
Yes, they do.
Judge, I move to admit that 25S, 24S, 31S.
We'll show them admitted.
Publish?
You may publish.
24S, this is you, your husband, and your Kenyan friend?
Yes, it is.
25S is the, you said the rental?
The rental house we had in Montserrat, yes.
And 31S is, what is 31S?
It's a newspaper article they did when we returned from the Caribbean back to the hometown we were in.
Let me reapproach it, take a look at that and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't look at it close enough. Yeah, this is the obituary for my
Sorry,
Dr. Sievers.
Tell me about that. When did he pass away?
He passed away in 1992, pancreatic cancer, just when he finished his medical internship.
Okay, and what year was that, you said?
92.
Do you know how old Marc would have been at that time?
24, I think,
Okay.
somewhere around there, yeah.
And did you play a part in that obituary?
Oh, yes, I wrote that.
You wrote it.
I wrote it for him, yes.
Sorry. Thank you. So you said your husband passed away and Marc was about 24. Was your husband still alive to see Marc graduate from college?
No, it was, there was a 6-month gap in there. He died before Marc graduated.
Did you see your son, Marc, Mr. Sievers, graduate from college?
Yes, I sure did.
Do you know from where?
University of Missouri, at St. Louis.
Missouri? Missouri. All right. Do you know what he got a degree in?
Psychology, Bachelor of Arts in Psychology.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
Fence 26S. Recognize that photo, man?
Yes, I took this photo, 26S, at his graduation, sort of a long-distance photo blown up.
Who's the gentleman sort of in the dead
Middle.
center there?
That's Marc.
Would you admit 26S?
No objection.
Show it admitted.
And publish, Judge?
You may publish.
That's the graduation photo you took?
It is.
And Marc is in the middle there?
Yes, that's him.
Proud to see your son graduate college?
Yes, very proud of him.
You know what kind of occupations or jobs Marc, Mr. Sievers held after graduation?
After and before, he had to kind of pay his way through college, and his father was gone, and there wasn't, a lot of extra money laying around for him to finish his schooling. But yeah, he was a waiter. He was transportation supervisor, I think, at a school bus terminal, and of course the casino later on. I think he did a short stint in a nursing home when he had his LPN license.
What's an LPN? What's an LPN?
Licensed practical nurse.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
Defense 27S. Recognize this photograph, ma'am? Or is that?
Yes, I do. 27S are a bunch of badges that I've saved over the years for him. Just the different casinos that he worked in the St. Louis area.
Okay, and did he go by any particular nickname?
Yes, as it says on these badges here, and I've seen him wear them, Smiley. He was just always so upbeat, so they named him Smiley, nicknamed him Smiley.
Judge, I move to admit defense 27S.
Showed admitted.
Published, Judge?
You may publish.
So these are various employment badges from various different casino jobs he had in St. Louis?
Yes, he worked his way up from, I don't know.
Gambling's legal.
Yes, gambling's legal.
And you said on several of these, he's referred to not by Marc Sievers, but as Smiley?
Smiley, right.
Some point you moved from Missouri to Florida?
Yes, after Michael died.
And you recall about when that was?
1995. Moved to the Keys.
Say again?
I moved to the Florida Keys.
And what about Marc and his siblings? Where did they live?
Well, Scott's lived in St. Louis and most of his life, except for the stint in England.
Okay.
And Marc did until he met Teresa. He came down, I think, to visit his sister and met her.
Which sister would that have been?
Stacy. Stacy was living in St. Petersburg, and Julie was living in St. Louis.
So Stacy knew Dr. Sievers?
Yes,
Okay. And Marc met her through his sister?
yes, he did.
You able to describe Mr. Sievers, Marc Sievers, as a father?
He's a real hands-on kind of father. I don't think I ever saw him that he didn't have his children with him. He loved taking them places, doing things with them. His style of parenting is kind of laid back and not harsh. He would rather they understood his directions and why they should do what they need to behave and so forth. And he liked doing things with them, as been said, plays and whatever they thought of to do, Marc encouraged them.
Did he show love for his daughters?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Have you seen them show love back to him?
Absolutely.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes, sir.
Defense Exhibit 29S, 30S. Ma'am, do you recognize these?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
Pictures of Marc in the middle. That's
29S is what?
29S is Marc in the middle, and Carmela on the left or on his right, and Josie on the other side.
And the other?
And this one is the same trio with Marc in the middle, Carmela on his right, and Josie on his left. And that's 30S.
There appear to be any occasion
Yeah,
those
this-
pictures were taken during.
This was, one of them was for one of the Christmas concerts that they went to, and the other one was in front of their Christmas tree at home.
Okay. Those fairly accurately depict the persons and events that you've talked about?
Yes, they do.
Judge, move to admit 29S and 30S for the defense.
We'll show them admitted.
Publish?
You may publish.
29S, would this be the one at home Christmas time?
Yes, yes, it is. That was a special Christmas tree. They had all their special ornaments to put on it, like everybody does, I suppose.
And 30S, you said said, was at some other event?
Yes, one of the children's Christmas concerts. Josie plays the violin at that time, and I forget what Carmela was doing at that time.
Have you had an opportunity to visit Marc Sievers since he's been incarcerated?
Yes, every week. I see him every week, and he calls when he can.
Do you love your stepson?
And I love my stepson very much.
If Marc Sievers were to receive a sentence of life in prison without the opportunity to ever walk as a free man again, would you continue to support him?
Yes, of course. I love him.
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you.
No questions from the state.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Thank you.
With that, yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that, it is noon. We're going to break for lunch. I'm going to instruct you all not to talk about the case among yourselves or look up any of the people or places involved. And why don't we have you come back at 1:30, 1:50, 1:30, 1:30. Please be seated. That concludes the witnesses from the defense.
Correct, sir.
Would you like to me to make inquiry of your client now or when we come back from lunch?
You can inquire now, Judge.
Mr. Sievers, you do understand, even at this stage, whether you testify or not, that is a decision only you can make. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
You understand your lawyer can only give you advice on whether or not he thinks you should or should not testify. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Have you had enough time to talk to your lawyer about that issue?
Yes.
Do you need any more time?
No, sir.
What would you like to do today, sir?
I'd like to remain silent.
Yes, sir. Okay. When we come back from break, we'll let you rest in front of the jurors, and we'll go to closings and final instructions. You've printed up the suggested portion, what is it, 7.11? You've given a copy to the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
You've left these 3 mitigators in that they've requested.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any others that you request at this time other than the 2 in the catch-all?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll ask that both sides review the changes that have been submitted, and if there's any objections, we can go through that when we come back from lunch. Anything further from the state at this point?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, sir.
Okay, why don't we come back at 1:15 just to make sure there's no other issues? And you have a slideshow, you said?
It's a PowerPoint presentation, yes, sir.
You need time to put the redacted version of that letter in?
We can do it over the break.
Okay. See everybody at 1:15.
You wanna look at